So, welcome here at this presentation on the current situation in the Polish judiciary, Justice Under Attack, Lessons from Poland. My name is Zdeněk Kühn, I'm a professor here at Charles University Law School and I'm a judge at Supreme Administrative Court in Brno. And let's speak just a few words about the topic, and then I will give the floor to Dr. Maisner from the Czech Bar Association, and then to our friends from Poland who will introduce us their stories from this, what is happening in Poland. Let me allow a short personal memory. When I was in Poland in spring 2015, I was talking to my friends from Polish judiciary, from Polish bar, and this was a presidential elections, Komorowski against Duda, and a lot of my liberal friends were telling me, oh, we will vote for Duda because Komorowski is quite a boring guy and we don't like him. Yeah, and I asked them, and you are not afraid what's going to happen in fall because you got elections in fall, and it's possible that Law and Justice will get majority, and they told me, no way, they cannot get the majority, there will be some sort of coalition. Duda would be interesting, but you know what happened? So first of all, Duda, a representative of Law and Justice, won elections in spring 2015, then in fall 2015, Law and Justice won also elections and they got majority. They got majority in the parliament against all the predictions, because especially the left was just because the left made a coalition and they lost a lot of votes. They dropped below the threshold to qualify to the parliament, so they did not make it. And that's why, because a lot of those votes were spoiled, even though they did not get more than 50%, Law and Justice made a majority in the parliament. And then the thing started, because the outgoing coalition appointed 5 justices of the Constitutional Tribunal, and basically the ongoing Law and Justice government ignored those appointments, and then the war about appointments of justices at the Constitutional Tribunal started. And the war, let's call it Constitutional Tribunal crisis, lasted from the end of 2015, the entire 2016, and then on Christmas 2016, finally Law and Justice was able to control the entire tribunal because of the fact that the term of the previous Chief Justice of the tribunal expired, and they were able basically around Christmas Day to appoint a new Chief Justice, and who let in all those problematic people who were, according to a lot of Polish professionals, not elected properly by the Polish parliament to the seat. Then it was confirmed also by the European Court of Human Rights that they are not really legally elected justices, but they are still on the bench. They are called by a lot of Polish judges and lawyers and professionals non-judges, pseudo-judges, anti-judges. Yeah, so in this way the crisis continued, but, and that things are getting really interesting, with the targeting of normal, ordinary judges, not the tribunal. Tribunal was captured, but starting from 2017, ordinary judiciary came under attack. Supreme Court, and then all judges. We have one here, we have one judge who is a recent victim of that attack here, so I look forward to hearing their personal stories. But what is absolutely fascinating for me is, first of all, the level of the attack. The attack on the judiciary is so obvious and straightforward that it does not have any parallel in Europe in this century. We can discuss the Hungarian situation, but Hungarian situation is more complicated because at least the formal rules are observed. You cannot say that Orbán's government violated any formal rule. Whereas in Poland, the situation is straightforward, it's obvious. The formal rules are violated in such an open and blatant way that it's so visible. And it's so astonishing for me. But the second thing, which is very positive, is the level of solidarity between lawyers and judges. When I asked one of Polish judges how they are able to cope with those attacks, he told me, because we got a really tremendous support from the bar, from our lawyers who are doing our defense pro bono, for free, because for instance, one judge told me, I face so many disciplinary proceedings now that I cannot even handle them. I don't know how many of them are pending against me, and that's why I have several teams of lawyers who are representing me. So this is something which I also find, in a positive way, astonishing. So let's look forward to hearing your stories, but before giving the floor to you, I give the floor to Dr. Maisner, who is representing here Czech Bar Association, for his opening speech.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe it sounds strange that the Czech Bar Association is raising its voice to support the judges, and not even Czech judges, but the judges in Poland. Oh, it's a different country. And we have our own problems. Usually we are fighting attacks against our independence as a Czech Bar Association, since Czech Bar Association is the last independent part of a Czech justice. I mean independent, well, judges are independent, but they are paid by the state, isn't it? They are strong enough to fight for regular raises of that thing. But we are independent, and we are independent from our own pocket, which is, I would say, good news and bad news. So, Czech Bar Association is raising its voice always when somebody is being silenced, punished, attacked to, if it's a lawyer from Iran, Turkey, Azerbaijan, or wherever else. Primarily, our support was aiming through CCBE to our colleagues, counterparts in other countries. But we do not feel separate from the judicial system. We are, as our Anglo-Saxon brothers say, the officers of the court. We do have a function there. If we are not present in the judicial system, it means that the game is wrong, it's crooked, and the parties who are presenting their cases before the court are in a situation which is totally different. So, problems with the attacks against justice in Poland, it's far away and it's very close. Whatever is in Europe, whatever happens in Europe, it may happen to any one of us. So, if things like even not influencing, but destroying the judicial system in a brutal way, which is targeting to the really functioning heart, if it's happening in Poland, which is a few hundred kilometers, it can happen in Prague tomorrow. We are not as naive to believe that such pragmatic politician may not appear here. If it will work and if it stands as a perfect scenario. From one point of view, people who are looking to the judicial system from outside, they say, why you advocates are so fuzzy about this? Weak justice is a paradise for us. Yeah? You can go there and you are the strongest part. It's a big mistake. Desire we do have as a strong, fair, independent, open-minded court where we can present cases of our clients, and if we fail, it's according to the law and the rules, And if we win, it's honest. So that sounds like a childish dream, but we still believe it can be true. So we wish that it may happen and be true here, but we also wish it will be true, truth everywhere. So we are with the Polish judges. We are raising our voice that things which are happening there should not happen. And if we can add more than just our impatient voice, we will be happy to do that. So, good luck and be strong.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the floor is yours. Can you describe us your stories, your perspective on the situation, which might be sound uniquely Polish, but at the same time it could happen really anywhere, including this country. We have rules which would enable that. And so far we were lucky that we did not have politicians who were trying to do that.
So let us introduce ourselves. We are lawyers from Warsaw who initiated an initiative at the beginning, then foundation, Free Courts, Swobodne Sądy, right? The aim of which was to react from the bar side, from the attorney's side, to the crisis in 2017 when common courts started to be attacked. Maria Ejchart-Dubois, Katarzyna Wiśniewska, myself, Paulina Kieszkowska-Knapik. We have two other founders who are not with us, Sylwia Gregorczyk-Abram and Michał Wawrykiewicz, and we have a guest with us, Judge Maciej Ferek, who is one of the suspended judges from Kraków. We are representatives of a bigger group of lawyers who are involved in pro bono defense of judges. It was a complete shock for us that's how it all turned, that we need to represent judges in the courts, which is complete opposite to the regular situation. What we tried to do, how we tried to help, we tried to do educational work for people to allow the audience, the public, to understand what's going on. The public had a very instinctive reaction to all those laws which were passed, which was huge demonstrations, but in order to grasp the legal concepts, we did prepare a lot of films. We will show you maybe some of them if you want. We did the activist work, organizing all those protests and events, and we started legal work when we had to make up cases which will push back this destruction. I think, Maria, I think
yes,
if you want to go through
thanks.
points.
First of all, thanks for the invitation. It's really great that we have a chance to talk about the Polish situation. And thanks for your words, because it's always so good to hear that someone not from inside is talking about the Polish situation, because that's the evidence for us that we are still logic and we think normally, because after those 7 years, which is more than 2,500 days of destruction, it's really hard to first of all to be active, to be in it, to be able to see what is right, what is wrong, what is legal, what is illegal. Nothing is black and white anymore, and it was at the beginning. Everything is gray. And even between us lawyers, there are so many differences, and now after the 7 years, we can see that we think in such a different way, and we have different ideas of how to restore the judiciary and what have happened and how to assess it and what to think about it. That it's really, we have a really hard discussions of how to assess it. So thanks for your words, because it's always important that the world think the same as us. So just few words to add of what you said. So the first was Constitutional Court in Poland, and we have to admit that at the beginning, this 2015, we didn't know why they they captured the Constitutional Court. Why they need this Constitutional Court? Now we know, of course, because now the Constitutional Court operates as a legalizer of the law. So the government can pass through parliament every single law which is against the constitution, but the Constitutional Court is to legalize it. So now we understand it. But of course, it was for us it was like a tragedy, and we thought that nothing worse could happen to us than to lose the Constitutional Court. This is the worst thing that for us lawyers could happen in Poland. But of course, we didn't know what will be later. So to add a few more facts. Is the second was the prosecutor's office, because it was the goal of the second attack of the authority by merging the office of the public prosecutor general and the minister of justice. So now it's the one person. So prosecutor general is a politician, so and a member of the government, and is a main prosecutor. And the changing of the whole structure of the prosecutor's office now in its present form, it's like more like an investigative body of the Minister of Justice than the independent prosecution office. Then the spring 2017, the authorities, what we said before, finally launched an attack on the judiciary, and 3 bills were changed. Bill of Supreme Court, National Council of Judiciary, and ordinary courts. And what is important is the National Council of Judiciary, which in Poland is a body that nominate and promote judges. This is extremely important because we call it as the changing of the law of this NCJ, now we call it Neo-NCJ, and we will be using this term today. Neo-NCJ is nominating and promoting judges. Now, as you can see, until today, Neo-NCJ nominated around 3,000 so-called neo-judges, we call them neo-judges, in total. Within 10,000 total. So 3,000 are neo-judges. 1/3. Nominated or promoted by the body, which is not allowed because of the changing the construction. To say it in a few words, before the part of this the part of NCJ, there were judges. 15 of them. There were judges nominated by other judges. And now those judges are nominated by the parliament. So within this political influence of that body, the body is not independent anymore. So lost the right to nominate and promote independent judges.
While the NCJ is described in our constitution, so this is the problem, that 15 judges from the NCJ were supposed to be proposed by judges, and now they are picked by the parliament. So the NCJ, and this is also written in our constitution, proposes the judges to the president to be nominated. So the problem is, if we don't have the NCJ described in the constitution, each nomination given by the president is illegal.
This NCJ selected judges also to the new chambers of the Supreme Court. So the 2 new chambers were created in the Supreme Court. One was the disciplinary chamber, which was the super court within Supreme Court, with its own budget, different than from the other chambers.
Independent president.
Independent president, yes, and it was the chamber was created as the last stage of the new system of disciplinary punishment of judges, because the whole system of disciplinary punishment was changed. Also, prosecutors and other legal professions. so advocates as well. And the other chamber is Extraordinary Control and Public Affairs Chamber, deciding on first approval of election rules, distribution of public finances between political parties, but also about, for instance, TV concessions. So those are two new chambers. Those are three, we call them old chambers, with old judges or legal
Marriage
judges.
related.
Yes, and they call themselves law judges. And we have new chambers. Now it's called. Sorry, I have something with my neck, so I'm having. Sorry, Chamber of Professional Responsibility, which was changed this year from this disciplinary chamber, and which is half of completed from legal judges and neo-judges, as you can see. Black are neo-judges, and this extraordinary public affairs chambers, which is completed from neo-judges.
Maybe just one comment
Yeah.
for you to understand what it was happening so quick. It was like a legal robbery, really, because they were nominated in 15 minutes procedures. It looked like panically packing those people to the Supreme Court. It was really like we were all overwhelmed, the way in which they were selected. Most of them prosecutors nominated the judges. One of them was actually accused before for torturing by interrogation of women in labor, for instance, just to give you an example of the climate. It's not that they were decent professors and suddenly just, the whole atmosphere around it looked like a legal robbery, so packing everybody that was loyal to those chambers. And that was the first example, as you said, it was rolling into complete madness, legal madness, because there was an interim by the National Supreme Administrative Court stopping the president from nominating them. The Supreme Court of Administration said, stop it, stop this process, this is madness. And they disobeyed this interim. And that was the first complete obvious disobedience to actual verdict. Everything that happened before was adopting laws, and we discussed it, openly criticized it. We didn't have yet verdicts of tribunals, of European tribunals, which we will refer to. But there was an interim from the National Supreme Court, and it was totally ignored. And that was another Copernican disaster for us.
So
Yeah, there's a question.
Can I have this? I got this confused in the part about NCJ. Is it in Constitution the way it works? Even the new way that the judges in the new way isn't it?
No, the new way is against the Constitution.
Oh, okay, good. I got this.
But the term
that's
that
the problem.
institution is in our constitution.
Yeah.
So according to
the term,
The term is in Constitution,
Yes.
but the way
Yes.
it is in Constitution, the
Yes,
way it is
yes.
in law, in there.
As-
Who appoints whom to
Yes.
this
Yeah,
body?
it's, now it's still said in the Constitution that the
Yes.
judges in NCJ are appointed by other judges.
Yeah.
But that's a very good question, because it's different to Hungary. They never changed any constitutional rules. They never had a majority to change.
They don't have
That's what
constitutional
I wanted to
majority.
say, yeah.
They don't have a constitutional majority, so that's why it was so important at the very beginning of the Law and Justice government to take over the control of the Constitutional Tribunal. Because, I must say, Kaczynski is a smart guy, because he's also a lawyer, and he realized he does not need to have a constitutional majority if he controls Constitutional Court. Because who says what the Constitution is? The Constitutional Court. Why to bother about changing the Constitution? What you did not mention is the fact that actually the Constitutional Tribunal, which is called in this way, actually approved that this is constitutional. And they said the previous model of NCJ
Yes.
is anti-constitutional.
Yes.
Yeah? So,
Yes.
in fact, the Constitutional Tribunal in Poland now serves as a protector of the ruling government. Usually, constitutional courts in Europe protect minority in the parliament. Yeah, the minority will refer the issue to the Constitutional Tribunal. Constitutional Tribunal would say, yeah, you are right, oh, yeah, no, you are wrong. It's not unconstitutional, or it is unconstitutional, but this is the opposition which turns for the court help. But in Poland, this is the government. Those are the deputies from the government who turn to the help to the tribunal to rewrite the constitution. And in this way, Poland is so unique, because in Hungary they don't need it. In Hungary they control everything. They have constitutional majority. So there were even judgments of the Hungarian Constitutional Court which proclaimed some legislation made by Hungarians unconstitutional. It did not matter, because within a few weeks they amended the constitution. Yeah, but in Poland this is in this way.
Our president invented such a theory that it is his supremacy, it is his right to nominate the judge, whoever this person is. So even if it is his driver, a cleaner, if you followed this thought, even he can nominate his driver, his cleaner. But the constitution says that the president nominates the judge, but the person must be proposed by our NCJ. And this is the problem. And we don't have NCJ. And also because of this, that we don't have NCJ, but the nominations, the process of nomination keep on going. We have 3,000 judges. So some judges, legally appointed, faced a problem, like for instance me, in our rulings, in our verdicts, that we face the verdicts of persons, of verdicts issued by persons who are not judges, legally appointed. So we started questioning these nominations in our verdicts. Then the ruling majority implemented new law. We call it a muzzle law. A muzzle law is the thing that you put on the dog's face, not to bark, not to bite. The law forbids the judge to check if another person is appointed in a legal procedure. If you check, you face only two penalties: moving to another city, like for instance from Krakow to Gdańsk, or you can be expelled from the position. There are only two punishments. So this is the reason for this was the chilling effect, because not all the judges, I am one of them, were bound by this illegal muzzle law. We were still challenging the verdicts of other judges. Then we got suspended. We did nothing wrong. We were suspended on the basis of an article in our bill of law of the common courts, that the judge may be suspended if he is caught red-handed while committing an intentional crime. I didn't commit any intentional crime, and I'm not red-handed. I was red-handed. I was caught red-handed while writing a resolution. So this is our only crime.
Yeah.
I understand that the Constitutional Court plays a very important role in those very bad changes in what happened and what is happening in Poland. So, but how did it happen? That was it really fast change of the situation at the Constitutional Court? How were changed members of the Constitutional Court that now it's such a, let's say, a dependent body on the peace party?
So we have 9 years terms for judges, okay, and 3 were selected by the previous majority, and they were simply not taken oath from by Duda. Duda didn't take them in, which was against the constitution, because Duda cannot choose who he takes oath from. He can only do it ceremonially. But
that's the difference between the constitutional judges and the common courts judges. The constitutional judges are nominated by the parliament, and Duda only takes the oath from them. We are nominated by the president, and that's so the 3 judges were already nominated, and he refused to take the oath from them.
And the next parliament selected three others for their places. So that's why we call like doublage, you know. Do you understand it? Yeah.
The reason was to take because of the 9 years old terms to take, because the terms lasted for another years. So the ruling party needed the constitutional tribunal fast. So they took the 3 positions and nominated another.
And then they nominated a lady who is a friend of Kaczynski to become the chief, and she illegally became the chief justice there because she neglected the voice of those judges who were still legally there. So there was like layers of illegality on both the composition, and then later on, with time passing, they were nominating their own MPs to become judges. So
now all of them
are from the same side.
What for do you have the president of the constitutional court? Because she is the person who picks the panels for the verdicts.
So she was picking only their judges.
Yes. So even if you don't have the majority in the constitutional court, you have the president and you have 5 judges. That's enough for the beginning.
It took actually 1 year. It took 1 year because the beginning, the assault started in fall 2015, and actually, to be fair, it is also true that the outgoing coalition made a big constitutional mistake.
That's true.
Because they actually appointed or elected judges, even those who should be elected by the new parliament.
Yes.
The Constitutional Tribunal intervened, and they actually abolished the action of the former parliament, and they said, indeed, you elected 2 judges unconstitutionally, but you also elected 3 judges constitutionally. So Duda, you must appoint them. Duda disobeyed, and they waited, and then actually on basically around Christmas Day 2016, when the term of the previous Chief Justice, Andrzej Rzepliński, when his term expired, and it was in the moment when there were big demonstrations, on the picture. There were big demonstrations against the government, but I always say to my students when I lecture about it, the best, of course, not only in Poland, but in Poland especially, the best way to do something illegal is to do it around Christmas. So those demonstrations took place even in December 2016, but around Christmas Day they ceased over. And around Christmas Day, actually, they are unconstitutionally appointed Ms. Wiśniewska as Chief Justice.
And the judges, they were nominated by Duda in the midnight, in the darkness.
No, the day before the actual tribunal was to assess those nominations. So he kind of revolutionarily sort of...
So we woke up in the morning and we found out that we have 3 new judges.
And what is more important, I think, to add is the fact that it is not only our assessment of the situation, but it was also underlined by the European Court of Human Rights in one judgment, Xeroflor versus Poland, in which the Strasbourg Court decided that these nominations were incompatible with our national law. So according to the European Convention of Human Rights, now we have no right to access to the constitutional.
And returning to this, what I said previously, it's not that I invented, it's my idea. It is this idea is written in our constitution, and we have already plenty of rulings of both the constitution of the European courts. So the doors are opened already.
And what is trouble here is, of course, that we can say that under normal scenario, in normal situation, what the Constitution means should be decided by the Constitutional Tribunal. And the problem in Poland is that the Constitutional Tribunal itself is composed of the people who, according to the Court of Justice and European Court of Human Rights, are not duly elected constitutional justices. So you now face dilemma, the institution you shall follow is not composed legally. Yeah? So this is the dilemma our Polish friends are facing.
And Article 6 of the European Convention of Human Rights, I think we all know, tells about what the court is. So our constitutional court this March decided that Poland, that Article 6 of the Convention is not inconsistent with our constitution. So we are not bound by Article 6.
Yeah, the Article 6 is not consistent with Polish constitution as far as it gives the right to the European Court of Human Rights to review legality of the appointment or the election to the Polish Constitutional Tribunal.
Yes.
So it's
They are busy
completely
only with
crazy,
those issues, to be honest.
bizarre situation.
Their work dropped dramatically. They are only busy of addressing those issues, like about the judges, about the NCJ. This is their competence now to.
But what is important are the consequences for the individuals, and because now as lawyers we have problems, for example, to assess the constitutionality of the decisions and the basis of the court decisions, because we have no effective remedy in the meaning of our constitution and in the meaning of the European Convention.
The courts start asking the Constitutional Tribunal for the preliminary rulings because it doesn't make sense. We don't have the Constitutional Court, so we have to solve the constitutional problems by ourselves in each case.
Well, anyway, the effect is that we have two parallel legal systems. One is, but they're not equivalent. One is legal, one is illegal, but effective. Legal but effective, because the judgments of those neo-judges and the legal chambers of the Supreme Court have daily effects. So, well, that's the effect. So you can see those great protests across the country from 2015 until 2017, where it was really impressing. And then, well, the other civil actions have started. So that was the time when we launched our Free Courts initiative. Started to travel as well to Brussels to try to discuss those issues with the European Commission. And so you can see our very first movie, which is not professional at all, but we just wanted to show you our first attempt to describe what's going on, and especially in Brussels and Luxembourg. So just have a short break to.
Dear listeners and viewers from all over the world, the purpose of this film
is to express our objection
to what is currently happening in Poland.
This is the voice of Polish lawyers of various professions.
Advocates, judges, attorneys, prosecutors,
university professors and students like me. Our common democratic home is being
dismantled by those in power,
piece by piece,
in breach of our constitution
and the rule of law in Poland.
Our civil and human rights are being threatened.
The lack of constitutional protection, because our constitutional tribunal is paralyzed, means that it is now impossible to pass any law by the ruling majority.
Even the most irresponsible and the most unwise law,
such as Holocaust bill.
We disagree with the interference with our
constitutional tribunal, which has become politically dependent.
We disagree with the unification of the role
of the Prosecutor General and the Minister of Justice,
leading to political influence on the prosecution of people who oppose the government.
It leads to political influence on the prosecution of people,
like in communist era.
We disagree with the devastation
of the judicial system
and its independence.
With Minister of Justice nominees appointed as presidents of the courts, people with no experience or stature.
The democratic system cannot force a judge to be dependent
on the prosecutor.
We disagree with the political takeover of the National Judiciary Council.
Its current members were ousted before the end of their terms
And are to be replaced by 15 judges associated with the Prosecutor General. We disagree with the devastation of the Supreme Court, with the immediate dismissal
Of almost half of the Supreme Court judges being forced into retirement at the age of 65.
including the President of the Court before the end of her 6 years constitutional term of office.
We disagree with the political dependence of the Supreme Court chamber
Responsible for election fraud.
This is the end of our stable democratic system.
We disagree with the new election rules, making election clerks
Dependent on the ruling party and allowing elections to be falsified.
We disagree with the political takeover of the national media.
To turn into a government propaganda machine.
We disagree with the laws allowing the government to invigilate
Citizens without due case and court control.
We disagree with the government's offensive attacks on the European Union.
Poles are both Polish and EU citizens.
Europe is our home, and EU institutions are also our institutions.
We disagree with the government's attitude to the refugee crisis.
and the lack of solidarity with those EU members who are helping.
Our solidarity heritage is being called into question.
We disagree
With restriction of human rights.
We disagree with the devastation of our environment, blocking green energy solutions.
Cutting the last primeval Białowieża forest with breach of EU law.
We disagree with the historic politics.
Including politically driven changes of museum exhibitions and the falsification of history.
We disagree with the so-called Holocaust bill. This law restricts basic democratic values,
Such as the freedom of debate.
We are proud of many aspects of our history.
but we are also aware of the dark side.
And who is to judge this law now? A politically dependent constitutional tribunal?
So it's a whole package. It's a whole package of things which come together as a concept. Dear listeners and viewers from all over the world,
And it was the time we established Justice Defense Committee, COS, which is a partnership of 13 non-governmental organizations, and was established to provide a support and legal aid for repressed judges and other lawyers. And we also create an archive, we call it the Archive of Repression, so that like every sign of abuse of power by the government to be remembered by us, civil society. And you have here a few numbers, you can see that at least because we do not know the right number, is that 160 proceedings initiated against judges until now.
we can share the presentation.
Yes, we can share the presentation later. So.
Yeah.
So you can see also that well, we present at least to 120 lawyers, at least 120 lawyers represent pro bono, represent judges before Polish and national and international courts. And here you have Judge Igor Tuleja, who has been illegally removed for more than 730 days, and just today he was returned just before our meeting after those 730 days. Also, Maciej is still...
Just a part of the milestone, yes. We will refer to it because the EU set
yes.
the conditions to give Poland money, so it's not that somebody sort of understood the mistakes they did, it's just the need to get the resilience fund.
May I ask you, what is the role of, let's say, newspapers and media, I mean, social media? Do they monitor the situation in objective way, or are they really, let's say, independent?
Well, we have Doppelstadt on media as well, because all the public media are totally propagandized. But we are different from Hungary because we still have quite strong private media, which are totally under attack all the time with slap cases, etc., etc. But it's still there. We have independent private television. televisions. I mean, 2 stations. One of them is kind of symmetric, and one of them is more on the democratic side. But it's still there. However, the government tries to monopolize it in many ways. They tried to close one of the private stations just when the Ukrainian war was starting, which was shocking because it's an American station, so it was a complete absurd to do it. They didn't do it at the end, but there was the law was already passed, so the attacks are ongoing. Orlen, which is the big petrol company, bought local newspapers as if it was a petrol business to issue a newspaper. So you see that the attempts to actually block all access to information is there. Even examples like technical requirements for your TV sets, which suddenly are there for all television channels apart from public ones. Okay, so that blocks half of Poland, or maybe 1/3 of the territory, from commercial stations. So the tricks like this, on every front you would see that there is this attempt on blocking access to information. What we're trying to do on our websites, on our Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, we try to pack as many simply digestible information as possible. There is journalists still who follow, but we have the reflection of this war on the media as well.
Yeah.
Well, you were about to say something, actually. The question. Okay. So, does the government make any steps against your initiative? That's the first question. And the second is, what is the Holocaust group about? You discussed.
Well, we are foundation of lawyers, and we are completely independent from any public funds. Of course, there is a lot of hatred against us. We were covered in public media as traitors, so very bad people anyway. Bad and ugly and stupid and whatever. So sometimes we mock it, sometimes it's really serious. But so far, this disciplinary chamber didn't make it to actually chase us, even though there was attempts to do it. The bar is still independent. However, there is a case in this constitutional law now, launched by Ziobro, who is the Ministry of Justice, to block our independence as bar chamber. So, I mean, there's so many fronts from which we pop up as, you know, as fighters, that it's not that quick to actually kill us all, legally speaking. But there is attempts to block, bar this and there. 2 of the barristers who were representing judges were subject to a complete inquisitorial process in this disciplinary chamber. So I mean, it's happening. It's on so many fronts. We have a report for you, which you can, which goes day by day what was happening.
Yeah, but the disciplinary chamber has no power over you. Like over
disciplinary. The last instance.
Yes. They cannot initiate without bar permission. They cannot initiate cases against us, but they can sentence us out of profession.
Okay, but the bar must give a permission.
Yes. And that's why they want to kind of put their hand on our independence as a bar. The Holocaust bill, it's now abolished because there was a big pushback from Polish historians, Polish society, and also Israel, even from Israeli and Jewish all over the world. There was a horrific law which said that it's not allowed, subject to penal sanctions, to actually discuss Polish involvement in the Holocaust.
Which would mean that you would outlaw historical research on the Jedwabne, for instance, which was committed by the Polish local population. So this is a nonsense. So I follow Haaretz, I read Israeli newspapers, and it was a really serious criticism.
Yeah, and around this law, the Israeli ambassador left Poland, and there was a big collapse on relationships. It was abolished, not entirely, but there was such a big pushback against it that it was finally abolished. But the spirit of trying to block people talking, people thinking, people discussing, people adjudicating independently, this is the whole concept of authoritarian, populistic regime has everywhere the same complex of ideas, right? I mean, it's always close in pairs.
And Poland is the only country that did not issue any reprivatization act and restitution. The majority of the maybe not the majority, but some part of the property that should be returned to the previous owners is former Jewish property. And okay, the Holocaust case is closed, but our ruling party with the president, because he signed the novelization to the bill, cancelled on last September, cancelled any chance to get the property back, even through the court. Even in the court, if you wanted to sue the state. So we are still in conflict with Israel.
This is like in this joke of Scorpion, you know, if they cannot help themselves, even if they repealed the Holocaust bill, it comes back in a different form. I mean, this Judex ex machina, or I don't know, gay ex machina, it has to come up, because even if they civilize their thoughts, one way or another, they will come up with an idea to chase the minority. It's really weird. Sometimes we think a given front is closed, and then it comes back. Like our educational law is to be changed now in a horrific way. It was already vetoed by Duda, and it comes back again. It's like, you know, it's like a hydra. We try to fight the hydra, but the heads are all over the place.
And it even humiliates their president, because if he refuses, and the parliament and he gets for the second time the same act to sign, it means that the ruling party doesn't care even about his decision.
Would you agree? Because here in Czechia we are really obsessed by our president. Presidential elections are coming. And everyone is talking about them right now. But it seems to me that in Poland you follow much more tradition of Pilsudski. That basically the real leader is not the president, it's not the prime minister, but the guy behind the chamber, the guy who is a chairman, who is in control of everything, even though he does not have any formal function. Is it? Would you agree with that?
I mean, there's a saying that Poland is ruled by two coffins. One coffin is Piłsudski, who was in the 30s, it was like your Masaryk, okay? And the other coffin is by Dmowski, who was a nationalist in the 30s. And those coffins, as mindsets, are in the Polish society, and they are alive. But it's only for Kaczynski that this phenomenon is there. Otherwise, we had regular governments, and we had powerful presidents. We had Wiśniewski, who was a real president, and he had a cohabitation with different governments. This phenomenon is just characteristic for this.
Our presidents before this one were real presidents, and the prime ministers were real prime ministers.
Okay, so coming back to our presentation,
what is important for us is not only our actions, but also the support from other countries. And as we said today at the beginning, your assessment is extremely important for us, but I think that it is worth to
because we have...
So 2 years later, 2018, I think 19 in January, we had this march of judges in their robes in Warsaw. So there was lawyers and judges from all over Europe marching on the street, and there was around 30,000 participants, maybe half of them in the robes. It was a very moving situation, and judges from all over Europe supported our judges. And it was a very interesting event, because there was a lot of discussions between them, and a lot of crying and a lot of hugging. Very moving. Some of them, and it's important for us in this region, some of judges from Western Europe, they said, look, we didn't realize how important we are, because everything is all right. And that's a very symbolic. I mean, we've been in this part of Europe through so many storms and wars and disasters. And one of the judges, who is now retired in Holland, she said, wow, I'm 75 and you know, I've never realized because my entire life was, you know, in a great country, developing and wealthy. So we made them understand how important it is, and they said like, wow, Polish judges are really representing what EU is all about. Not only money transfer and roads and, you know, but values and being all together in one family of people who respect rules and other people.
Hungarians attended or not? Hungarian judges.
I don't know. I don't think Hungarians attended. I don't think there is such a inside resistance of Hungarian judges as it is in Poland. Apart from Judge Baka, but Judge Baka, you know, I mean, if you compare numbers of prejudiciary questions from Polish judges and Hungarian judges, it's
they are not listed. There you are.
It was very moving because the thousands of judges and other lawyers in robes were walking through the streets of Warsaw, and it was quite a challenge for judges, I have to say, at the beginning, because they said that they cannot wear the robe outside the court.
Well, there were even presidents of some courts in Krakow that, in Poland, that forbid the judges to take the robes
from the court for the march.
From the court, and if they took, later they had some problems.
Yeah.
Some of the presidents actually closed the robes in the wardrobe.
Yes, in the wardrobe.
Things like that.
May I ask you about the approach of public, I mean, of lay people? I understand that professionals, they are in favor, of course, they support the independence of judiciary, they understand the great danger of the situation now in Poland. But what about lay people, public? I saw those demonstrations, I heard about it, I read about it in 2017, but what about now? Do Polish public, do people understand the situation? I mean, lay people.
I think they do more and more. They definitely do understand the role of a constitutional tribunal after the anti-abortion verdict. Everybody understands what it means to have a captured tribunal because everybody is endangered now, especially young people.
Because we have now almost complete ban of the abortion.
Which causes a lot of tragedies and actually kills gynecological medicine.
In Europe.
So, and statistically, there's like polls and analysis of society, and we still have a huge support for EU, and we have a very high support for EU demanding rule of law, even though they stopped money. So, of course, the ruling party has around 30% of firm supporters who are following the public news, etc. But the majority of the society is declaring itself as opposition. Whether or not our opposition leader will come together like in your country and that will result in a change, we don't know, but statistically what is now calculated, they could even get a constitutional majority if they come together. Because if you count all the opposition voters together, they are around 70%.
And you know, money talks. We are cut off from the EU funds, and parallelly the financial situation in Poland is worsening. So people are starting to ask themselves the question: what's going on? That because of 3 suspended judges, some chambers in the Supreme Court, we don't get funds from the EU, and for these reasons, Poland pays each day 1 million euro. So, it is already about something like 400 euros. So people start, come on, we are collecting. There are public collections of money for sick children. And on the other hand, we waste 400 million euro.
But the problem
only for penalties, because I'm not talking about the resilience fund. Yeah.
The problem is that the outside observer does not perceive a radical change in the institution because purely legal sense, they function and operate as usual, although the content and substance have changed.
Follow institutions.
Yes, so it happened on an invisible level for the citizen, because the courts operate as usual, procedures function as usual, although the sense and substance has changed.
Like in the communism, the common cases, they were recognized by the court, and there were no pressure from the politicians about the inheritance law, even the criminal law.
By the way, what is fascinating is that many of those steps, many of those measures made by the Polish government basically copy measures made by the Stalinist regimes here in Central Europe in the late 40s, early 50s, because precisely in the same way the judiciary was taken over, replacing presidents of the courts. In Poland, if I'm right, like about half of the presidents of the courts have been replaced. Exactly the same thing was happening in communism, at the beginning of communism. Harassing judges, kicking out judges outside of the judiciary. Exactly the same thing, the same pattern. Which is, by the way, which is the proof that we talk all the time. Some people talk all the time about communism, about communist heritage. But in fact, those people who are doing that in Poland were firmly anti-communist fighters. Yeah? So it's not whether you are anti-communist or communist, but whether you are authoritarian. Because even anti-communist fighters, like members of Solidarity, both Kaczynski were fighting communism, but in fact, they are following the same steps that the communists did.
Well, actually, there is a legal document about it, because they thought they're going to have blessing from weak European institutions, and they asked the Venice Commission to give a report on all those changes. And the report was totally crashing, and it used, I actually counted it, it used the word Soviet 12 times. Every single institution that they implemented is actually of Soviet origin, centrally organized, oppressively political, etc., etc. So, I mean, there is a proof on the legal document, which they obviously disregarded. But
and it's exactly true, because on the contrary, if you talk to judges like 60, 70 years old, who don't remember the Stalin times, didn't work there, but they worked before 1989. They say that they never faced such a devastation and such a pressure during the communist time like what's happening now. They said that they could never imagine such a disaster, that such a disaster can meet a judge, can face a judge.
so now, what did we do legally about it?
Yeah, because as we now are describing, the changes and reforms are conducted on different levels, and that is why our reaction should be also conducted on different levels. So first of all, it was communication issues, information actions, activities, but because we are lawyers, so the main element of our activities is strategic litigation before national and international courts, especially European courts, so Strasbourg and Luxembourg court. Of course, we are treating these proceedings as a whole, because as you know, to initiate the proceedings before the Luxembourg court, it is not possible for individuals to submit the complaint to this court, but we need to convince the judge to submit the preliminary ruling to the request to the Luxembourg court. The situation is different with Strasbourg court, but still we need to conduct the proceedings on national level. Now we are involved in around 100 proceedings before national courts and international courts. What is important for us, it was also the discussion at the beginning, how to initiate the proceedings, and it was the change in our thinking about the litigating cases before the Luxembourg and Strasbourg court, because we were experienced in litigating cases on behalf of individuals. But what was the difference is the fact that now we are representing judges. as the element of the justice system, but we are representing judges in their own cases. For us, in the proceedings before the Strasbourg court, the main and the most important judgment was the judgment in Baka case, so it was the case on Hungarian judge, and it was the case connected with the dismissal of him from the position of the president of the Supreme Court. We have our pleadings are based also on the cases and judgment against Ukraine, also connected with the dismissal of the court presidents. And for us also very important was the judgment in Iceland case. It was Astrason versus Iceland. It was the case also connected with the nomination process and violation of the national law during the nomination of judges. Our friends, so Sylwia Gregorczyk-Avram and Michał Wawrykiewicz were representing judges before the Luxembourg court, and Maria and Paulina attending this first, I think, the very important hearing in this regard, so maybe you can add something about your reaction to the first, I think, the most important case.
I think we as lawyers, we dreamt to be there for a completely different reason, arguing an important client case or something like that. So it was really sad to be there and watch it when Sylwia and Michał represented the light, and on the other side you had like a darkness argument, like, okay, we can do whatever we want, we won the elections, and don't tell us what to do, and representatives of the government arguing actually with a panel in a very aggressive way. It was really sad to watch. It was like a clash of legal cultures, to be honest, when we watched it. But this case was a corner, fundamental case when it was decided that those neo-judges in the Supreme Court are not actually judges, and the composition of a disciplinary chamber is wrong, and the capturing of the council, which promotes judges, is wrong. So it was a very moving moment for us. One comment is that they also have, in Luxembourg, they have to learn how to quickly and effectively communicate. Just an anecdote, when they actually declared the verdict, and it's always declared in a native language of the case, which is kind of weird because everything is translated and the verdict itself is not translated. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. And it's so dry and so formal that even us having this case, we had to kind of sit down and think like, gosh, did we win, did we lose, did we, I don't know.
We didn't understand it at all.
No, it was just so hermetic, completely ununderstandable. And then they, well, the good thing is that they put the reasoning of this
very quickly
straight away. Yeah. But we got more to know from this reasoning online than from the actual words of the judge. So this is something that judges all over the world need to understand, that the simplicity of message is the key. It needs to be understandable for a bread eater, as we call it in Polish. Right?
Absolutely.
Otherwise, this whole brown water of illegality will reach this golden palace sooner or later, because people will not follow. It's just too complicated. It was enough to say politicians are not allowed to interfere with judges. Maybe just tout bon mot, you know, like something that people would catch, and then there's the reasoning, legal reasoning obviously is needed. But otherwise it's a very hermetic thing. And then there was a very quick reaction of the Supreme Court, because you see, the problem is with preliminary rulings, you need a local court back home to actually execute this verdict. And what the governing party tries to do is to, you know, to actually cover everything, so that there's no panels which will, you know, ask for help, right? So we are chasing time here, and sometimes we are frustrated because it takes too long for us, because this avalanche is coming, and we don't have, we want this panel to actually. This is what happened with Żurek case, where the panel which was to address it is now gone.
Żurek.
And let me say, if we are talking about Waldek Żurek, this is Waldek Żurek, and this is Christian Markiewicz. He is the president of the biggest association of judges. Waldemar Żurek is probably the judge that you, Mr. Professor, at the beginning talked. So from the perspective of judge, I want to say that without the help of attorneys of such a foundation like free courts, we judges, we wouldn't be able to manage these cases. Because of the nature of the cases, and because, like for instance, I am suspended, so I have time. But I'm a civil law judge. I'm not a criminal law judge. The disciplinary proceeding is based on the criminal law. So here comes the support from the attorneys, and this guy, he is not suspended. He's not suspended on purpose, and the president of my court said it clearly, that Waldemar Żurek will not be suspended, although he rules like me. He has 21 disciplinary proceedings pending, and none of them considers the quality of his jobs. These are the most ridiculous reasons to. He speaks on TV. He has a case. He goes to the children to talk about the constitution. He has a case. So in his case. It looks like they want to ruin him even physically. He has to work and to manage the cases, because if he doesn't manage the cases, he will have another disciplinary proceeding, and he has to manage the disciplinary proceedings
all over the country. And every single
yeah. Each case is in different is in a different court, and he told me. He has 25 pro bono attorneys, defenders to help him, because he wouldn't be able to live.
Yeah, please.
I have a simple question. What happens if you don't come to your own disciplinary proceedings? Because you mentioned it's all over the country, and I have just a simple idea not to come there. What happens then?
Well, they will pend. It's like in the criminal law case. If you are accused,
it's obligatory, but
sometimes it's but
and this is the case of Igor Tuleya, who returned today to work, because the case today was if he should be brought to the prosecutor by force or not. And the new chamber, even the new chamber that is still illegally appointed, refused to force him to. Yeah.
Yeah. What is important to add about Judge Żurek is the fact that he was the member of the old Council of Judiciary. So
the last legal one.
Yes, the last legal one.
And he was a spokesman.
Yes, he was a spokesman, and it was also the judgment of the Strasbourg court about his case. And the Strasbourg court decided that the decision to make shorter his term in the old Council of Judiciary is inconsistent with the European Convention of Human Rights, and also the Strasbourg court underlined this chilling effect on Judge Żurek, especially in connection with his opinions.
One important thing about him, they invented this extraordinary appeal.
That's what I wanted to say, that thanks to this team, we have a new, extremely important verdict considering the interim measures in another chamber. So
No, it's just that they invented this extraordinary appeal, which can overrule every verdict politically, and it's in this one of the chambers. And it's populistically just one judge and two citizens. Okay, so the most complicated judgment can be overruled, and Ziobro actually appealed Żurek divorce verdicts with division of his property with his ex-wife, in order to
which was
chase
final.
him.
The
It was
verdict was
final. In
And-
normal, in two instances.
Legally bounding,
Legally binding, yes.
two instances and the Supreme Court.
Yes, and
Yeah.
the Supreme Court.
Even.
And now Zbigniew Ziobro, Minister of Justice and Prosecutor General.
He defends ex-wife.
Yes, yes, and he reopened the case by this new extra.
This one where you can reopen the case 20 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is so
This is-
different.
Yeah.
This is completely incredible thing that
Yes.
you can really, this could be possible, say, at the end of the communist regime, you know, at the end of the Nazi regime.
Yes.
But not today. We
Yeah.
reopen any case decided 20 years ago. This is crazy, and the
Even
legal
the-
security suffers.
Even
because-
the one who went through the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the case of Żurek, and we have now before Court of Human Rights 3 other cases
Yeah.
of.
I think that now four.
Four.
I think
Of
it's
this
four.
one.
I think
Already
that
lost.
four of
Yes.
him are pending and one
Yes.
is decided after
Yes.
the final judgment.
They are also using this instrument to reverse verdicts against public television, which loses almost everything because people are offended and people are, harassed on public TV. So they win cases of defamation, and then comes Ziobro going with this verdict to the paper destructor, like in the office you have like shh, So there's a politician that can do the same with every verdict.
But Paulina mentioned interim measures before the Strasbourg court, and I think that it is also an important element of our activity, because we are not using only the possibility to submit the application to the Strasbourg court, but also we are using so-called interim measures request. So before the initiation of the proceedings, before the Strasbourg court, we have the possibility to submit the motion to, for example, suspend the proceedings before illegal chamber, or ask for special information from the court. And now our cases connected with the proceedings in the cases of judges are, I think, that are the most important group of interim measures cases before the Strasbourg court. What is important to add is the fact that before our rule of law crisis and our activity before the Strasbourg court in this regard, the interim measure procedure was usually used by the court only in cases connected with extradition cases.
And torture cases.
And torture cases.
And if we didn't have this interim, well, I don't have. For me, it was too late. But if not the interim measures, there would be not 6 suspended judges. There would be 60 probably. And thanks to thanks to this job and the European Court of Human Rights, the suspension stopped.
And one thing on the EU law front in Luxembourg, it's different because interims can only be given if a commission files the infringement case, not an individual preliminary question. So in those preliminary question cases, we cannot have interims. But it was also our job to convince the Commission and EU Parliament to make it a priority that, for instance, the kicking out of all our Supreme Court judges is stopped by interim, and that happened. It was filed. It was a thriller in July 2018 when actually in the 4th of July all the judges were to be kicked out, and the 3rd of July there was interim stopping them from doing that. So, no, actually it was filing of the case, and the interim was, but the judges bravely stayed in the court, and they didn't, I mean, most of them didn't go. So, EU Commission also did a great job, but also with
With the hard support of, we were traveling like crazy to Brussels to convince them, and at the beginning they said, no way, I mean, what are you talking about? But then we were, discussing with other lawyers going there, and finally they
It was
did it. So,
weird situation for everybody. I mean, they wouldn't have it on their agenda before, so it was,
And what is the result when the judge is suspended? What are immediate effects? So does he get some reduced pay or?
Yeah. In my case, because there are 2 stages. The first stage is the administrative decision of the president of the court, and you are suspended for 30 days, and within these 30 days the disciplinary court is supposed to rule if the suspension is for a longer period of time, or the suspension was unnecessary. So in my case it looked like I was sitting behind the desk at 3 p.m. In my chamber, and then came two workers from the secretary office. They took away all the files from my chamber, even from my head. I was writing something, and gave me the zero copy of the decision of the president of the court. All the systems, all my accesses to the systems were turned off. I don't know why, because these are also...
And he's a newly appointed president of the court.
Yes.
Of course, and she's the colleague of Minister of Justice from the kindergarten. So they know each other for 40 years. Every time the PiS and the PIS came to power, because she was my colleague. She was the colleague of mine from the district court, and so I knew her well. And each time the PIS came to power, she disappeared in the Ministry of Justice, and finally she became the president of the court. And now she is the president of the neo-NCJ.
And when neo-NCJ was kicked out of the European network of NCJs, because there is such a network, she said, oh, you know, that doesn't matter. This is like a weird organization and we have to pay some fees to them. We don't need that.
And her living partner is the director of the School of Judiciary in Poland.
So, as we mentioned before,
and returning to your, my salary is cut by half.
Usually it's about 40 or
25%.
Well, not to mention that in every situation like this, all the people who have cases handled by a given judge are hindered, because it's slower in civil cases, but in penal cases, everything needs to be repeated. Tuleya was the top judge in the most complicated cases. When he was suspended, he had, I don't know, dozens of cases where, for instance, he heard 300 witnesses already. And this all needs to be repeated. Somebody's arrested for much longer, somebody is not getting justice for much longer. This is completely out of any picture of those who decide about it.
And come on, but in civil cases, I had more than 200, and after my suspension for half a year, nobody touched the files. They were arrested in the wardrobe of the chairman of the division, and so these are people's cases, people's money.
All these changes introduced by our government were assessed by the European courts. So now we have the judgment from the Luxembourg or Strasbourg court regarding the changes in the Constitutional Tribunal. It is Czech Bar versus Poland. We have many cases connected with the nomination by new Council of Judiciary. As Maria explained why this nomination violates our national law. We had also many judgments connected with the disciplinary chamber and interim measures connected with the disciplinary chamber, not only judgments, a final judgment. Now we are also litigating in cases connected with this special chamber connected with the control in public affairs. And of course, we are litigating in cases connected with changes in disciplinary proceedings, and we also had judgment connected with this issue. The last judgment is the case Wiśniewska versus Poland, also connected with the suspicion. And Maria was representing the clients in the case connected with the dismissal of the presidents of the courts, Dolinska, Ficek and Ozimek przeciwko versus Poland. And now what is also challenging for us is not only litigating before the national or European courts, but what is important for us is the implementation process, both of the judgment from Luxembourg and Strasbourg. Now I think that next months and next years of our activities will be also we will concentrate also on this part of our activities. In December, the Committee of Ministers of Council of Europe will analyze the implementation process of these judgments against Poland connected with the rule of law crisis. We know that on agenda there is Czech Bar versus Poland, so connected with the Constitutional Court, and also this case is connected with the nomination. But we also have our reaction to this.
Yes. So all in all, we have all of those issues covered by judgments. And now the frustration comes because none of those judgments was executed. So legally speaking, we provided the job. The cases are won. Every aspect is covered. So now the government do the cleaning after all this mess. And here comes the issue that they don't want to do that. They implemented, they used the tribunal. They captured to state that Poland is not bound to execute any of those verdicts, neither the EU ones nor the Strasbourg ones, which is obviously legal nonsense. We cannot unilaterally say that we're not going to execute the conventions. Not to mention that there's no conflict whatsoever of any convention or treaty with our constitution. The wording is exactly the same. It's just the conflict of laws and the fact that they don't want to execute those verdicts. So what do we do? I mean, the Commission says to Poland, look guys, it's serious. You have those 20 verdicts, but we want you to execute at least 2 before we release the money on the Resilience Fund, and then started this whole negotiation of milestones. The milestones, 3 milestones, which the Polish government promised to do, which is reinstation of judges, liquidation of disciplinary chamber, and this whole inquisitorial chasing of judges, and changes of disciplinary system. None of them happened. Today, Tuleya was returned. Maybe so that's a signal to the EU
to meet
yes,
requirements of the second
but
March. And the first one, sorry to interrupt you, the first one was to liquidate the disciplinary chamber. So as I said at the beginning, it happened. So now it's a different name, the chamber, and some legal judges in it, but also some new judges. So
appointed by Duda, exactly by
so it's still not a court according to Article 6 of the Convention, because they are picked. We don't know what were the criteria. He picked from the judges of the Supreme Court 11 names, and now they are in the chamber. 6 are neo judges. 6 or 5?
No, 5 neo, 6 legal judges.
Yeah, but 3 from these 6 legal judges have absolutely no problem to rule with neo judges.
And the other 2 refused at the beginning that they are not.
It's a psychological thriller. Yes. They are chasing for those who can kind of obey to the system.
So like today's verdict of this chamber was made by the legal judges, but it was you never know who will be in the panel. So today the panel was of 3 legal judges. But today they asked me...
and this is my problem, because probably I would have returned to work, but I have in the panel reference
judge.
The reference judge, who is a neo judge. So I am suspended because of questioning a neo judge. And am I supposed to return to work with this decision of the neo judge? And the problem is the justification, because the judges who decided to stand in front of this court heard justifications that okay, you can return to work because in your ruling you made a mistake while interpreting the EU law. I don't feel that I made any mistake, so I'm waiting. I applied to exclude this person from the panel, and I'm waiting for the proceeding.
But anyway, out of all these verdicts, just 3 elements were put by the Commission as a triggering event for the EU money, for the Resilience Fund money. And they made this rumburak work, you know, in the parliament to create this law which seems to execute those verdicts. Obviously it doesn't. And therefore the Commission still says, like, guys, I mean, you didn't execute. And that's why the money, it did not come. But we thought as a group, judges, justitia, etc., that we cannot wait for the government to actually produce a law because they don't want to do this. It's obvious. This whole operation was on purpose, to be above the law, not to be chased for any illegality, to be completely free-handed in ruling the country. So they wouldn't let it go. It's just too costly for them. So we thought we'd sit and draft a law which would really do this stuff, which would execute all those verdicts. And Justitia prepared a draft which covers all those verdicts, which introduces the proper rules for the council, repetition of tenders, those competitions for judges. So nobody's punished, nobody's chased. We just repeat the wrong appointments. Those judges are given time to finish the cases so that people are not touched with any break of the system. Verdicts stay unless a citizen wants to question them. So we don't produce any chaos, we don't have any vendetta, we don't have anything. It's a very hygienic, formal rule. Obviously it was rejected by the governing majority, but we had a coalition of opposition parties which took it on their plate. And at least we managed to make them declare that they put it in the parliament. It had a number, but obviously it was voted out. But we have them signed with a draft, which, if things change, could be the basis to actually clean this whole mess. With those presumptions in the law, it could take, I don't know, 6 months, and we could be on the safe side. We could simply. There is this presumption that judges which were firstly appointed, just students who became judges or assessors who became judges, could be sanitized by this law because they did not compete intentionally. They were trapped in time, so it's not their compromise to be there. But those who competed for positions, who entered, and there was like jumping people who are linked with the governing party from lowest courts to Supreme Administrative Court. Your colleague in the Polish Administrative Court now would be, for instance, a steward from Polish Airlines who has never been a lawyer, but he has formal education as a lawyer, and he would become a Supreme Administrative Court judge. And things like that happen all the time. We have a collection. There is this brave judge who actually watches all the sessions of this body and has a list of all the atrocities which happen. So anyway, the positive thing is that we have a solution. It's a ready draft which covers all those verdicts, not only those 3 verdicts. We have a full support of European judges because they also had a strong action. They actually sued for the first time European Council for allowing those milestones to be just 3 of them, right? The judges say like, hey, there's 20 judgments. Let's be serious. Either we respect those judgments or we are just, playing a game of European Union here. And the judges said, like, you have to squeeze Poland into obeying to all those 20 judgments. It's more than 20 now. I'm just referring to like a number of both from Strasbourg and Maciej. So there is a way out, which we participate in preparation. We tried hard to work with opposition people, which is not easy, I tell you. A lot of Zen practice is needed, but I mean, at least we have their understanding of what should happen, which is a good starting point. It's not a decisive element, but I think it's an important.
Especially in the light of coming elections, because next October we have parliamentary elections, and we are pretty sure that the rule of law is not going to be a subject of the campaign, because it's not sexy anymore. And
as if it ever was.
And our opposition politicians are not really interested in the subject of restoring
Takes too
the
long.
law.
It takes too long. Anything which takes too long,
Yeah.
including the war, unfortunately.
Yes, yes.
People would get bored.
No, but the link with money is something which is so visible, so visible. I mean, people start thinking like, gosh, we don't have hospitals, roads, we don't have anything, we don't have coal, but we have 12 prosecutors dressed up as judges. Come on, what kind of bargain is that? Nobody's getting anything. Plus, let us just say that the whole system just slowed down totally. The main aim of reform, the declarative aim, was to speed up, to be more, modern. And all of this is contrary to those declarations. So people are, plus people start to question, to Strasbourg, regular people start to question their verdicts. Banks will start to question their verdicts. Like we have huge Swiss franc credits cases. And now if they are decided in the wrongly appointed chamber, in the civil chamber of the Supreme Court, I'm sure the banks will question them.
And the criminal courts in Europe refuse to give the arrest warrant because the judges, like for instance in Spain, they check online if the arrest warrant was signed by a neo-judge or a judge. So it's getting more and more crazy and complicated.
Also for Czech lawyers who can have Czech clients in Poland or Polish clients in here, where if there is a neo-judge in the panel, you can be sure that the other side will raise this argument on the way. Or you cannot assure your client that the process will be fair as far as penal law is concerned. So it's a very Czech issue suddenly, because if any reference case will be also, for instance, Xeroflor case, which is against the doubler in the Constitutional Tribunal, it's a commercial case. It's a case of a company which couldn't do some VAT tax calculations, and they sued this law to the Constitutional Tribunal, and the doubler judge said dismissed. So it's not that we are only talking about judges fighting for their positions or human rights defenders. It's regular business which starts to question the verdicts that they are given, because those verdicts are given by neo-judges. And therefore, at the end of this, if we don't clean this mess, Strasbourg court will be the final instance of every case in Poland, because people will go there for damages and question the illegal judgments.
And probably at the end we'll have the pilot judgment from the Strasbourg court, and it will be a fast track, in this regard.
Yeah.
I have two questions. I'm a little bit puzzled by one thing, because unlike here, I know that Polish citizens are very in favor for the European Union. Here, unfortunately, Czech Republic or substantial part of Czech Republic is quite Eurosceptical. So, why, let's say, the overwhelming majority of Polish citizens is not more sensitive about those steps of the Polish government against the independence of judiciary and also against the European Union principles? So somehow...
there's a growing support to EU, actually, according to all these statistics and polls which are done by the institutions which measure public opinion. And if you think about how much propaganda is there against EU and against Germans and against Czech, for instance, during the Turów crisis, you were the enemy number one on public television. Suddenly, everybody was like shocked. How can Czech people be our enemy? But they engineered the conflict, which never existed really. So I think the public is very pro-European. Obviously, it can be on the shallow level, but I think I'm amazed in a way that this pro-European spirit is so present. We also realize with the Ukrainian war that we are nothing on the border without this whole family of countries. Of course, US is an important player in the Ukrainian crisis, but otherwise, I mean, this is so important that we could help. For instance, we could help Ukrainians, but then other countries would also take them on board. People are realizing that this is our to be or not to be. Historically, we are either Russia or we are on the West. there's no third way.
Today I heard on our TV, it is getting more and more absurd. You probably heard that one of the Ukrainian missiles landed in and exploded in Poland. So the Germans offered us two Patriot
Sets,
yeah. And Kaczynski said today on TV that we refuse this offer because we don't have any guarantee that the German soldiers will use them properly to defend our sky.
Can you imagine that? I mean,
and this is the the propaganda that people are fed for 7 years.
Yeah, but just to also my view on that is that even though the people are pro-European, unlike Czechs, still the issue we are debating for many people is of marginal value. Because for them it's more important that this government was able to distribute, to allocate money.
Yes.
They would social subsidizing it.
But
At
we
the
are
end of the
bankrupt
day,
now.
this is the pocket which
And the pocket is empty.
It was all given away.
Well, may I have a question which is basically all involved in this, it has all to do with this. We know each other with Paulina since whatever 2013. So let's do this mental exercise. Let's rewind the clock into year 2013, and with all what you know now, let's say that you have the powers even to influence maybe something in the judiciary system. What would you do backwards in 2013 if you knew that what would be coming in 2015, etc.? How would you increase the resilience of the justice system? And the second question, which is basically part of the first question, I see here one narrative, which is that the judges have their strange ways of, and lawyers of thinking, of their decisions, of articles, etc., etc. But in the end, we're unable, and I'm afraid that it's not that different than in Czechia. I think it's even the same story. We're basically unable to explain to the public what the rule of law means to them, what the constitutional court means, what the courts mean to them, and maybe it's good to know that before the courts you have Venezuela, and with that you have whatever. Nice democracy. So the questions are two. What would you do back in 2013? And do you think that there is a way for the legal profession in its entirety to somehow be more understandable, to somehow explain to the remaining 99% that we are not just a bunch of strange guys, freaks, but that we are doing, in effect, even something that's valuable, that brings value to the society. And my last comment is that in this country we have a tradition of economists telling lawyers that we should shut up and just do nothing. So that's even worse here. So that's it. Those are the questions.
So I think that it's the same question.
Yes.
It's not only one question. It's only one question. Because what I would change is the way of communication of lawyers with society, of judges. I'm sorry, of judges with society. About Paulina mentioned the justification of the Luxembourg court. It's an issue in Poland of justifications of our national judgments. So I think that communication is the key to reform and is the key to protect the rule of law. So I think that it's the same basis. So we can give you some maybe
yes,
just
one word. Before. Yes, that maybe you know that we have a great constitutionalist, Professor Mirosław Wyrzykowski. Yes, that's what you're going to say. That that he said that doesn't matter how many locks we install in a door. So and one lock is like a constitution, the second, it doesn't matter how many of them you have in a door, but if someone wants to kick off the door and ruin the house, they do it by force. So, well, if the barbarian came like Paulina used to say, well, you can have so many locks, but it doesn't work anymore. But what is extremely important, and I think what is our seeing from the previous years, is the lack of education in schools, about the law, about the rule of law, about the constitution. We didn't know what is in the constitution. Even during our studies, the constitutional law is like during the second year, and it's not really important. We are waiting for the real law, like a civil and penal. Constitution is like something between history and
theory,
which is not. We didn't even read the whole constitution during our studies.
And it's boring.
And it's boring. It's extremely boring.
Well, that's actually the only good drafted simple text.
Exactly. But to be honest, I for the first time I read the constitution from page 1 to the last one in 2015. Before I knew that what is institution, of course, because I passed the exam. But you know, I never use it as a living instrument.
And one anecdote, before doing the free courts, me and Maria and some other friends, we tried to establish something which was called 5 sentences. So to squeeze those issues in 5 sentences. And we had this project for the Festival of Youth to prepare a booklet, like a leaflet, which would refer to important verdicts of a constitutional tribunal. We knew that this crisis is coming, to make young people interested.
In 5 sentences.
We looked through all of these verdicts, trying to find one sexy sentence, like, I don't know, economy is stupid, or whatever, like whatever sentence that we could actually squeeze for a teenager to understand. At the end, we had to, and this is really weird because law has this paremia tradition. The whole Roman law is about one sentence which captures the concept. Why did we lose that? Why did we lose that into like sections of sentences with double negation, etc.? So at the end, we only found interesting passages in the Vota Separata of one of our Ruth Gainsbourg, which is Professor Wentowska, and she was always on the edge, like with her thought, but it was Vota Separata usually, so we couldn't really use it. So it just shows to you that they never communicated. They never had like a press spokesman who would say like, okay, guys, you are protected in your education right. You are protected against, because the direction of those verdicts was pro-people, very pro-democratic. But the language was just totally ununderstandable. So that's one lesson. And another lesson is schools.
Okay.
We are educated in a way to communicate in a horrible way, a dreadful way. Many lawyers believe that the more unintelligibly they speak,
especially at the beginning of the career.
Law in this way is a sort of magic. A proper magician must be misunderstood, and this is a huge mistake.
Yes.
A huge mistake.
Yes.
So we are trying constantly to
land with this message.
Yes, land with this message. And this film, very short movie we want to show you. It was from last year Euro.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, football Euro. What is this? Like championship or whatever it's name. And we were trying to use this narrative of football into the legal way.
Nie na wolne pole, ale skuteczna interwencja i od autów znowu o grę zawodnicy w białych koszulkach. Ładne rozegranie. Tymczasem rywale wyprowadzają swoje piłki. Jedna piłka z prawej, druga z lewej. Atak obydwoma skrzydłami. Sędzia słusznie stosuje przywilej korzyści i gol! Kameras! To są te indywidualne zdolności! Czarne koszulki idą za ciosem, przechwyt. Na powtórce widać brutalne uderzenie w twarz. Ale dyskusje z sędzią mogą i samo kosztować. Szary żabiałych zaraz wyjdzie sam na sam, ale niestety pułapka offside'owa. Tu nie potrzeba waru. Może teraz stały fragment gry, a w murze wszystkich 12 zawodników. Wygląda to ciekawie. Tymczasem mamy zmiany. Na boisku pojawi się powiew świeżości. I po co było tak szaleć? Czy biali mogą to jeszcze wygrać? Co tu się dzieje? Może teraz szansa dla białych koszulek na zmianę rezultatu. Niestety nie ma bramki. Nie ma bramki, proszę Państwa. Bramki nie ma.
Tato, o co w tym chodzi? To normalne, że was wstydzi. Trudno zrozumieć taką grę bez zasad. Ten mecz wygląda tak jak walka o demokrację i praworządność w Polsce, którą my, obywatele, prowadzimy od 2000 dni.
Wciąż gramy, chociaż przeciwnik oszukuje i fauluje, ma władzę i komentatorów. Nie poddajemy się, gramy pressingiem, dryblujemy i mimo wszystko wciąż strzelamy bramki.
Oni na razie mają przewagę, ale to po naszej stronie są zasady i przyszłość. Nie pozwól, żeby wygrały czarne charaktery. Włącz się w mecz o wszystko.
Razem możemy go wygrać! Nie no.
Jeszcze może na fakcie puścimy, jest też
Tak.
There's another one which we shot during the presidential elections, where we thought that the opposition is not touching rule of law issues and it's a mistake. We shot one which we tried to make as objective as possible. Obviously, it's about breaching the constitution. So we will try to show you this. Tu jest ostatni. Zobaczcie. Tylko ta Christmas.
Okay. We need some time for our research. But
Anyway, it's for us. It's always a very nice experience to be in those films, but we have to fundraise, especially for the project. We don't have any sources to actually do it, but we do it with directors who offer us help.
okay.
No, skończ. It's coming?
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
short, yeah.
Maybe you should say that it's the president and his wife.
Yes.
So the concept is that there's a president and his wife. I'm sorry.
Perfidna gra tabloidu przed wyborami w tle skandalu niemiecki kapitał. Szczegóły już za chwilę. Jest 19:30. Michał Adamczyk. Witam Państwa i zapraszam na wiadomości.
To tylko spacerowicze.
I to do celu!
So we are trying to say something in a less political way as possible as lawyers. So just go and vote, please go and vote. Okay, that's all we prepared. If you have any other...
Thank you very much. Questions from the public?
You make you speechless.
Yeah, please.
Maybe I pop up with a question about money. Do you still have in Poland that this initiative 500 plus?
Yes. Yeah.
Of course.
And how is it functioning? Are there any debts or from where the money comes still?
From the helicopter.
From the printer.
No, I mean the whole concept of helping people is okay, but it was from the very beginning. It was meant to be an election machine rather than help with economical help. It's true. It's fair to say that it helped a lot of families, but it's also true that there is no mechanism of addressing them to people who in need, and all of us get it, right? And we, for instance, transfer it to charity or something like that. It's complete nonsense. And this abused the budget a lot, plus all completely, I mean, even the case against you in Turów just sucked so many millions of euros. And our penalty for not executing, I mean, there's so many sources of losing money that 500 Plus is not the only one. It's enough to say that, for instance, kids in orphans don't get it. Okay, it's only for people,
families, for voters.
Only for parents who vote. So
it's obvious the way the government buys people. I was just curious if it's still going on.
But it's fair to say that despite this mechanism, still the majority of society is watching at it critically, at the whole situation critically, in polls. As we mentioned, you were wise enough to have a situation where opposition went together. Even there's differences between them, but they formed a coalition. What we fear is that our guys, leaders of the opposition, will not be capable of doing that, and that mathematically is a disaster. Because even if the winning party doesn't have a real majority, it has a bonus on the mathematical calculation of votes. So that's we have to, I don't know your system, but our system is based on this Belgian mathematician Dont, who recalculates the votes proportionally to the winner. The winner doesn't have to be necessarily 50 plus.
Yeah.
Mathematically.
Precisely. But the fact that the opposition would unite is not a guarantee. Look at Hungary, like in Hungary, the
yes,
entire
but in
opposition
here,
united.
but in Hungary there's no media. I mean, everything is really
This is true.
dead.
This is true.
In here we have a society
Yeah.
which is alive and kicking. We have huge number of NGOs. We changed the way of protesting because going out of the street was blocked by pandemic. Even though we did demonstrate during this anti-abortion verdict crisis, but we all changed the ways in which we can exploit our energy because it's such a long march, it's like a marathon. So we concentrate, like also we concentrate more on legal work now than before.
Yeah, it is true that in Hungary, like fighting for the opposition without any media support whatsoever, there is no electronic media. Classic electronic media, radio, TV, all are pro-government, so the only
This
media...
is not free elections.
Yeah, this is different in Poland, this is the problem.
I mentioned the printer because after these 7 years, the same 500 zlotys is not still the same. After the inflation, now it is like 300 zlotys in reality, and people also notice this difference. So again, money talks.
I have one question, returning basically this whole case to Czechia. We have two honorable judges here. When I was listening to this, one question I had in my mind was, what if this happened to us? So my question is, let's assume that we would get a similar party as PiS, that is just not that concerned with rule of law or has its own interpretation of rule of law, which is very specific. Would our system be resilient? Do we have any more safeguards than Poles do? Is our civic society, would it be ready? What would happen? Is there something like formal or informal safeguards in our system which would work better? Or would we just go the Polish or, God forbid, Hungarian way? Were we just lucky, or do we possess some Marvel team of superheroes that protect us at the Supreme Administrative Court or at the High Court in Prague, so that I can sleep soundly, or were we just lucky? And if we were just lucky, are we prepared?
Actually, if I can start, many rules we have in Czechia are even worse than in Poland. But the fact is that after 1989 there was no one who tried to abuse them. No one. For political gains. There is the only exception during a long time ago. This was during the ministry of Pavel Němec. those rules were abused for purely private reasons, but not for political reasons, for political gains. But otherwise, even including Babiš government and all those demonstrations we had against the appointment of Minister of Justice Benešová, no one, even in Babiš government, tried to abuse that. Never ever it happened. But if it happens, it would be really challenging. I don't know, by the way, the answer, because what I already told, what I admire in Poland is a robust, strong civil society which is represented here. And I don't know, I'm not so sure that we have such a strong civil society which will stand up and support judges in their fight against the challenge by the autocrats. And I don't know whether we have such strong judges as our Polish judges who would stand up and who would fight for their rights. No one knows, because you know that the Czech nation behaved historically in a different way than the Polish nations. I was just telling that last week to another Polish friend I have, and she responded, okay, you got some advantages as well. Your cities look better than Polish cities. It is true, because of the war. But
less heroic graves, maybe, but at least.
Yeah, so I don't know truly. I don't know truly what would happen. We were lucky enough that no one tried to challenge, no one tried to attack, and we have indeed some systemic advantages in comparison with Poland. Appointment of constitutional justices. It's more difficult. In Poland, simple majority in the parliament. In Czechia, you need cooperation between the president and the Senate, and so far the crazy appointments of both Presidents Klaus and Zeman were dismissed by the Senate. So it is the institutional advantage. In comparison with Poland, we follow the American solution, and in my opinion, it seems better. But it is not a guarantee that we will have a constitutional court. You can see what this president is doing. He's not going to appoint another candidate, nominee. The previous president behaved in the same way. So there is no guarantee that there will be any appointments at the first place. Yeah? So we might not have a constitutional tribunal of the Polish type, but we might easily end up with having no constitutional court at all. Yeah? If the president does not act. So we got some advantages, also thanks to the decision-making of the Constitutional Court. Like, for instance, in Czechia, it would not be possible to dismiss presidents of the courts so easily as Ziobro did, Minister of Justice of Poland did in Poland, because in Czechia you need justification, it's subject to review by the administrative court, so you cannot dismiss president of the court as well, as happened in 2017, 2016.
A few hundred, he dismissed a few hundreds.
So it would not be possible here. It would not be possible here, not because it is written in the law, but primarily because this is a case law of the Constitutional Court. What do you think, Láďo? What do you think? Is it? Are we in danger?
I would be maybe a little bit more skeptical than you are.
And I'm skeptical enough.
Because in my opinion, the same what happened in Poland can happen here also.
Yeah.
And just one small example. I talked to one friend of mine who is a Hungarian judge, and I posed him a naive question: how was it possible that this happened in Hungary? And he told me, well, could you imagine the situation that your Babiš politician would win 3 times in a row parliamentary elections with a constitutional majority, and then that would be the answer? So of course I got appalled when he mentioned such a situation, which, let's say, could happen here. And in my opinion, I definitely agree that, in my opinion, civil society in Poland is stronger than civil society here. And I also think that Polish judges are, like people, maybe it's also because of the national mentality, that you are stronger and you are more resilient. And if something like that happened here, well, I have some doubts that the Czech judiciary will be able to sustain and to create such a contra-pressure against the pressure from the government. So that's also the reason why I'm here, because I really, let's say, quite careful and I really closely watch the situation in Poland and also in Hungary, but in Hungary it's already lost. It's not a... And also this Hungarian judge told me that if you want to create a dependent judiciary, like in Hungary, you don't have to have all judges dependent. He is judge at the court of first instance. Huge majority of them are independent. What you only need to overpower the top of judiciary structure, and that's it. The Supreme Court and the Constitutional Court, and that's it.
I wouldn't be so sure in Poland how would the judges react if the constitution was changed illegally. The reason why we fight against this what's happening is that the constitution is violated severely. And this what I cannot myself, I can speak for myself, I cannot stand this situation. And it's of course not that all of the judges are fighting.
Well,
this is what we can see. What you can see is probably 5–10%. The 10% is on the other side, and in the middle there is the majority that observes what's going on.
At the end of the day, though, this is the people which matter, because if the constitution is amended, if it is enacted a new constitution, what we can do? Like, we must follow the constitution. Our Hungarian colleagues are in a much more difficult situation. Yeah, and if the people do not mind, judges cannot protect some abstract, not the constitution, abstract ideal of what they believe the constitution should be against the will of the people. They cannot do that. Yeah, so.
But people can only react if they are aware of the situation, and I as a prosecutor think we have one big advantage here in Czech Republic, and that's the fact that we try to communicate since 2015, when there was a conference held with Czech and Polish prosecutors and judges. We discussed our communication, and now, these days, Czech courts and prosecutions as well have their own websites. They have some press releases, they have some press speakers, and I think that's a big advantage, because when this situation happened in Poland, I understand you didn't have that.
Right, that's what I meant. They didn't communicate properly. It's very quickly changed, and Justitia was a great learner. They quickly started to communicate with Facebook and other media, and to be on the media. Of course, each and every one of them had a disciplinary case, which is also against the Strasbourg line of judgments, because they are allowed to defend the abstract values. But it was a very quick learning, cosmically quick learning to actually go out for us as well. I mean, we never did any films or anything of the kind. So, well, for me, for instance, I'm able to put the film on Facebook upside down. So, you know, I'm not a Facebook person. So, I mean, probably I'm the only one on the planet which is thinking of doing that. So, you know, but we communicate via social media. So you go out of your comfort zone and communicate. And also, the simple thing, when we started discussing with Supreme Court judges, like, you have to defend these values and go and, you know, go to Luxembourg and question the situation. Their pictures were not even on the website of the Supreme Court. Nobody knew them. Nobody knew their faces. So it wasn't even possible to compare, I don't know, them with the neo people, because there was no comparison basis. They were not known to the public. The lady who was heading the Supreme Court, she also quickly had to learn how to go to the media, to the television, but it was not her DNA.
Yes, and they were quite honest with us. They said, we are here to adjudicate, not to fight for rule of law. So if they don't want us here, we are going to pack ourselves. They were packed already, our Supreme Court judges. So it was not that, like, from the first day they were brave and.
I mean, it's a big group of people because there's almost 100 of them, so they differed in the reaction. Some of them left, some of them stayed, some of them are much more
And the judiciaries are framed in bureaucracy spirit.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the spirit of bureaucracy. We behave like bureaucrats, we think like bureaucrats, and quite often we react to challenges like bureaucrats. Yeah, this is exactly what you are explaining.
I know one of the Supreme Court judges, it is an anecdote, but it's true that they were really packed and he had so many books in his chamber that he started distributing them among friends because he was not able to take them home. And later, fortunately, the law changed, was reversed.
He said, and now the books are gone.
Well, you know, it's just 2 years earlier it happened.
As we mentioned before, we are trying to write down every day what has happened day by day from the day zero. And here are some copies in English for you, just to follow up every single detail of what has happened. And so we'll do it constantly. So if you are interested for one of those.
We also produce a newsletter which we prepare every quarter. So if you would be missing English, so if you want to get it, we can add you to the mailing.
Maybe one last question of mine, and then I promise I will shut up. Do you think that if every Polish kid after 1989, obviously, had in elementary school some interesting course which would include some amazing film like that one with the football match, and was explained in very, I mean, for me, rule of law is not, in the end, it's not a rocket science. It's exactly what.
No, it's been in every literature, every book that you read. In Kafka, in Shakespeare, every Shakespeare play is about this. All the Macbeths that want to be kings.
First question, is it really so hard to explain that if the rules change, then it's hard to play football? It makes no sense. And the second thing, do you think that if this is sort of everybody in Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic being simply careless? That we simply did not care. We thought that there is the end of the history and the liberal value will prevail forever, and we just didn't care. We were careless. And isn't it maybe that it's now time, at least in Czechia and in Poland, hopefully, when the situation changes, to really educate the kids and to tell them, you know, the referee should be independent and there shouldn't be two balls and nobody should use the bats like that. Aren't we just careless? Aren't we teaching our kids not to use drugs, alcohol, but aren't we forgetting that we should also tell them that there is something important, which is the rule of law, which is what influences us in the same way?
2015, we established very quickly the simplest and the cheapest project ever, which is called Constitutional Week, and is about that the 1 week of the year, the lawyers, all of the lawyers over the country, are going to school, to primary or secondary schools, for one lesson to talk about Constitution. And we do it twice a year, every year. So, and we covered like, I don't know how many thousands of students with those lessons. We prepared a very simple scenario, which is available online. So the lawyer, judges, prosecutors, advocates, academics, they just print this scenario and go for one lesson to school to talk about Constitution. The simplest.
But our educational minister is just about to ban it.
Yeah.
Surprise.
Yeah, because now it's forbidden to have guests from outside. In the school.
I was about to ask about the law you mentioned about the educational system that is about to be enacted and that you call horrendous. Do you describe it briefly? Which part?
Well, they want.
First, they changed the books, and they changed the history in books. Yeah. So we have a new subject which is called. It's very simple, which is called. Heat, which is
history and temporary time.
Yes, history and yeah. So
this means that the kids won't be educated about the history prior to a certain age.
No. They will be educated. I mean, the time is still covered, but there is false narrative about the last century.
Yeah.
And for instance, there are informations in this book about the events that happened before 1989, and there are put pictures of President Duda and the present from the present times.
But the good thing, there was a pushback as well. There is claims in the court because there is offensive talk in those books about LGBT, in vitro kids, etc. So there is claims, and there is a big pushback, and no schools actually took this book as a main book, and historians prepared online curriculum super quickly in 2 weeks. So, I mean, we hope the reaction will be on the contrary, because it was so obviously stupid. But they want institutionally governmental officials to control schools. So, who comes to, not parents, not the kids, not the teachers, but they want to control schools, and we have private schools and public schools, and they want to control both. And hinder any intellectual, everything that you would think positively in education, openness, criticism, environment, equality, tolerance. This is all going to be blocked if they keep the power.
To create a new citizen, like in every totalitarian
another brick
system.
in the wall. Yes, it's exactly. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We all read those books, and then why all those pictures are not matching? You know, in high school, people read Kafka. You have a museum of Kafka here, right? Everybody knows the trial, and everybody knows the Joseph K. How do you feel being in Joseph K, and why is it not so easy to understand? I think young people, they were not present at the first demonstrations to protect the Constitutional Court because they thought it's, you know, old prickster. It's not sexy. We're gonna have our latte and go out. And now, you know, it's dangerous to have sex in Poland because you're not gonna have proper care. Not only that abortion is banned, but that means that gynecologists are totally frightened of helping women. Neonatology medicine is in devastation. So the aftermath of this verdict is so touching on everyday life that people might finally understand why is it important to have an independent court.
There was also a crisis with Czechia, as I remember that, because
Turów?
Not Turów, but the abortion, yes. With the abortion issue, our ambassador in Prague intervened that Czech Republic should do something about the fact that Polish women are traveling to
Czechia. I think there is a project called Ciocia Czesia here in Prague, held, and that means there are some Polish people here in Prague who offer help to Polish women.
But that's another example of lawyers' cooperation, because we prepared this group of lawyers like a handbook for women. There is, I think, 1,000 cases in Strasbourg filed by Polish women against this ban, both potential pregnant and pregnant. So there is again a big pushback. Now there is, I think, a poll which showed that 70% of Polish society is against this verdict. So you know, we are growing in understanding what happened. The devastation is huge, but maybe this will be like let's hope. I mean, we still have 1 year to make this just a vaccine for all of us. If we not manage to cure, you will just visit us as, you know, as political prisoners.
So, I would like to thank you very much. It is a nice way of ending this wonderful presentations. It was very enriching for all of us. And I would like to thank our Polish friends, and I hope that next year will be better than this year, which was horrible in many, many ways.
That's right. Thank you very much.